Did I ever stop to think about how folks managed food preservation before the age of electricity? Root cellars are far more than mere holes dug into the earth. They represent remarkable instances of natural engineering, skillfully utilizing the planet's inherent cooling capabilities. Far below the surface, the ground holds a surprisingly consistent temperature year-round, generally hovering between 34 degrees Fahrenheit and 40 degrees F. This particular optimal temperature range is the secret behind why root cellars function so effectively. At 34 degrees F, something quite remarkable occurs. This temperature sits just above the freezing point, preventing vegetables from becoming solid ice blocks. Simultaneously, it's sufficiently cold to markedly decelerate the natural decomposition process. Harvested fruits and vegetables remain living organisms, respiring and generating heat much like we do. The cool environment significantly lowers their respiration rate, allowing them to stay fresh considerably longer than if stored at room temperature. However, temperature constitutes only one part of the equation. Humidity plays an equally vital part in this subterranean preservation method. The majority of root cellars sustain humidity levels ranging from 85% to 95%. While this might evoke images of a steamy tropical jungle, there's a solid justification for such high moisture content. Without adequate humidity, my carrots would quickly dehydrate into brittle sticks, and my potatoes would wrinkle faster than a pop balloon. The inherent moisture within the earth contributes to sustaining this ideal humidity level. Consequently, a dirt floor isn't merely a cost-effective alternative to concrete. It serves as an indispensable feature of the root cellar's preservation apparatus. The earth naturally regulates moisture, releasing and absorbing it as needed, functioning akin to a large-scale humidity controller, essentially a smart humidifier requiring no electricity or refills. What elevates these natural cooling systems to an even more impressive status is their energy efficiency. Contrast this with modern refrigerators that constantly hum, consuming electricity and adding to monthly utility expenses. Root cellars operate in utter silence, driven solely by the principles of physics. The thermal mass of the surrounding earth functions as a superb natural insulator, ensuring the internal temperature remains stable, irrespective of external conditions, be it a blistering summer afternoon or a frigid winter evening. Different types of produce have distinct optimal storage conditions. Root vegetables such as carrots, potatoes, and beets flourish in the cooler, damper lower sections of the cellar. Apples and pears favor slightly cooler conditions with moderate humidity, whereas onions and garlic fare better in drier, somewhat warmer areas. It resembles having multiple climate zones within one's personal underground food repository. The science governing air circulation within root cellars is just as intriguing. Based on the simple principle that warm air ascends while cool air descends, root cellars employ this phenomenon for effective ventilation. Numerous traditional designs incorporate a pair of vents, one positioned near the floor to admit cool air and another near the ceiling to allow warm air to exit. This establishes a natural convection current, maintaining air freshness and inhibiting mold development. One might consider it the original smart home system, operating without any need for batteries. Speaking of maintaining natural conditions, a particularly interesting scientific aspect of root cellars is their ability to hinder premature sprouting. The combination of darkness and cool temperatures deceives vegetables into believing it's still winter, thereby preventing them from initiating growth. It's comparable to placing vegetables in a state of gentle hibernation until I'm prepared to use them. And while discussing natural construction materials and insulation methods, the proficiency with which the Amish have refined these concepts, utilizing solely traditional materials, is truly astounding. The next time I hear someone mention they're embracing environmental consciousness by purchasing a new energy-saving refrigerator, I might bring up the Amish methods for food storage. Their root cellars represent the true pioneers of green technology, and it all begins with their selection of materials. Stone is the primary material used in root cellar construction, and for valid reasons. These aren't merely random rocks gathered from the vicinity. We're discussing carefully chosen stones that interlock like pieces of an enormous subterranean jigsaw puzzle. Each stone contributes to forming walls that can reach up to 2 feet in thickness. While modern construction might view such dimensions as excessive, there's logic behind this robust masonry. These substantial walls function as a thermal battery, absorbing and releasing heat so gradually that the interior temperature remains remarkably constant even when external weather conditions fluctuate dramatically. Clay serves as another key player among natural materials. When compacted correctly, clay forms a nearly impervious barrier against both heat transfer and moisture penetration. The Amish have understood for generations what contemporary builders are only now beginning to appreciate. Clay can sustain a stable temperature more effectively than many modern insulation products. Furthermore, it doesn't release potentially harmful chemicals, unlike certain synthetic materials. While my vegetables might not be concerned about inhaling toxins, my lungs certainly appreciate cleaner air when I retrieve potatoes for supper. Here's a potentially surprising fact. The thermal mass of a well-constructed stone wall provides insulation comparable to approximately 8 to 12 inches of modern fiberglass insulation. However, unlike fiberglass, stone retains its insulating capacity over time, and contact with it won't cause itching, unless perhaps I collide with it too forcefully, which might result in more than just an itch. While saving money on concrete is certainly a welcome advantage, the dirt floor offers more than just cost savings. A properly prepared earth floor stands as an essential element in the root cellar's humidity regulation mechanism. The natural soil beneath permits moisture to migrate upward or downward as conditions dictate, thereby preserving the optimal humidity level that ensures vegetables remain crisp rather than becoming soft and mushy. It operates like an intelligent humidity control system powered by soil instead of complex algorithms. Wood also fulfills a vital function, especially in ceiling construction. However, the choice of wood is specific. The Amish generally employ cedar or white oak for root cellar elements due to their inherent resistance to rot and insects. The only product endorsed on our channel is a book by Claude Davis, a seasoned prepper, detailing 126 superfoods and preservation techniques from historical crises like the Great Depression and wartime, which are difficult to find elsewhere. We chose to promote his book because we represent the last generation capable of transmitting these skills and knowledge about nutrient-dense foods and crisis survival preservation methods to our descendants. It would be regrettable if this information were lost. Nicole Aponte's book on herbal remedies is also available in their store. If viewing this on television, search for our channel, Frugal Solutions, on a phone or tablet and locate the books via the link in our channel description or any video description. A robust wooden ceiling structure can endure for decades without chemical treatments, a claim not easily made for much modern treated lumber. My neighbor once attempted to use pressure-treated pine in his root cellar. Now his potatoes have an unfortunate flavor reminiscent of swimming pool water. The entrance design of an Amish root cellar is another demonstration of natural engineering prowess. Most incorporate a double-door configuration with a small intermediary chamber or anteroom. This effectively establishes an airlock, minimizing the escape of cold air whenever someone enters, perhaps for a late-night snack retrieval. It functions like a gatekeeper for the cold air, denying entry to warmer air. One of the most clever features of Amish root cellar construction lies in the ventilation system. Utilizing nothing more than strategically positioned stones and air passages, they engineer a natural draft that ensures fresh air circulation without introducing excessive warmth. Modern builders might invest heavily in mechanical ventilation systems, yet the Amish accomplish comparable results through carefully placed openings and a solid grasp of air movement principles. The materials chosen for shelving are equally significant. Whereas contemporary storage solutions might employ metal or plastic, Amish root cellars typically utilize slatted wooden shelves crafted from rot-resistant woods. These permit air to circulate freely around the stored produce while also absorbing any surplus moisture. The spacing between the slats is meticulously determined. Too wide and smaller items might fall through. too narrow, and essential air circulation is compromised. Even the mortar binding the stones is deliberately selected. Traditional lime mortar, unlike modern Portland cement, permits the walls to breathe while preserving structural soundness. This permeability is vital for managing moisture levels and inhibiting the proliferation of undesirable mold. It's remarkable how a seemingly minor detail, like the choice of mortar, can differentiate between a cellar that endures for generations and one that devolves into an underground fungal farm. And speaking of natural cooling methods, the way the Amish utilize underground water for a unique form of temperature management is quite astonishing. The Amish have perfected an ingenious technique involving underground water, not as the principal cooling agent, since the root cellars inherently maintain the optimal 34 Fahrenheit from the Earth's stable temperature, but rather as an auxiliary system for managing temperature and ensuring consistency throughout the year. Let's consider some figures. While the Earth at the depth of a root cellar holds that vital 30-40 F temperature, subterranean streams generally flow at temperatures between 50 to 60 F. My initial thought might be, why introduce warmer water into a perfectly cool cellar? This is where Amish resourcefulness becomes apparent. They primarily employ these water systems as temperature moderators and humidity regulators, not as the core cooling source. During the harshest winter months, when external temperatures can plummet far below freezing, these comparatively warmer water channels actually help buffer the cellar, preventing it from becoming excessively cold and freezing the contents. It acts as a thermal safeguard. Conversely, in the summer, the 50 to 60 F water, though warmer than the cellar's ideal temperature, remains significantly cooler than the ambient outdoor air. This helps mitigate the warming effect when the cellar door is opened. The true brilliance is revealed in how the Amish leverage water for humidity control. By routing these water channels through the cellar walls or beneath the floor, they establish a natural system for regulating humidity. The moving water releases just the right amount of moisture into the air, sustaining the critical 85% to 95% humidity range necessary to keep vegetables firm and fresh. My modern humidifier, in contrast, seems capable only of extremes, either desert-like dryness or rainforest-like dampness. Certain Amish communities have engineered intricate drainage systems that contribute to the cellar's temperature stability. These water channels are meticulously positioned to divert any excess heat that might penetrate from above, while simultaneously providing that consistent source of humidity. A single miscalculation in design could result in an unintended underground water feature rather than a functional root cellar. A friend of mine once tried to emulate this system. Suffice it to say, his vegetables became aquatic before they achieved long-term freshness. The upkeep of these water systems further highlights Amish ingenuity. Regular cleaning is necessary to prevent algae accumulation and ensure unobstructed flow. However, instead of resorting to potent chemicals, they frequently introduce small fish into the external segments of the water channels. These fish consume any potential algae growth, effectively creating a self-maintaining system, nature's own maintenance team, one might say. A particularly astute feature of this system is its adaptation to seasonal variations. During summer, when temperature regulation is most critical, the flow of underground water naturally increases due to meltwater from spring thaws and rainfall. This inherent rise in flow rate delivers enhanced temperature buffering precisely when it is most required. It's as though the system intuitively knows when to increase its activity, all without sophisticated sensors or automated controls. The engineering underpinning these water systems is remarkably sophisticated, despite the absence of modern technology. The Amish must precisely calculate the appropriate slope for water movement, guarantee effective drainage, and position the channels optimally to maximize humidity distribution while minimizing any potential warming influence on the cellar's core temperature. It's akin to directing an orchestra, where each component plays a specific role in the overall harmony of food preservation. Some Amish communities have even devised methods to utilize these water systems to establish distinct humidity zones within a single cellar. Areas nearer the water channels sustain higher humidity levels, suitable for crops requiring more moisture, while sections farther away remain somewhat drier, accommodating produce that prefers lower humidity. It's like having different climate settings within my refrigerator, except this system operates purely on gravity and meticulous planning. However, the effectiveness of any root cellar depends not only on its internal systems, but also critically on its placement. The chosen location can mean the difference between a haven for food preservation and an underground steam room. Speaking of placement, selecting the ideal location for a root cellar somewhat resembles searching for a parking spot at a bustling mall during the peak holiday shopping season. It requires foresight, strategy, and perhaps a touch of good fortune. Unlike that elusive parking space, however, the Amish have refined the process of identifying the optimal cellar site into a practical science. First, consider the depth. Approximately 10 feet below the surface, a fascinating phenomenon occurs. The Earth maintains an almost unwavering temperature throughout the year. Soil temperature data indicates that for every 10 feet of depth, the temperature difference between summer and winter diminishes by about 2 degrees F. Upon reaching that crucial 10-foot level, the seasonal temperature fluctuation is typically less than 5 degrees F. My own kitchen probably experiences greater temperature shifts just from baking cookies. North-facing slopes are considered the optimal orientation for placing a root cellar. The reason is straightforward. These slopes receive the minimal amount of direct sunlight over the course of the year. The Amish recognized centuries ago what modern construction is only now fully appreciating. The sun acts like an overzealous acquaintance, intending to be helpful, but ultimately making everything excessively warm. A north-facing slope inherently remains cooler, providing the cellar with an advantage in temperature control from the outset. The surrounding terrain also plays a significant role. Trees can be both beneficial and detrimental. On the positive side, they offer natural shading and assist in regulating ground temperature. On the negative side, their root systems can be more intrusive than persistent telemarketing calls. The Amish typically seek locations with mature trees nearby for shade, but positioned far enough away to prevent root interference. Drainage is another paramount factor distinguishing a functional root cellar from a subterranean puddle. The terrain should slope away from the cellar entrance in all directions. An approximate 2% grade is considered ideal, translating to about a 2-foot decline over a distance of 100 feet. An Amish farmer once shared their informal potato roll test. If a potato placed on the ground near the proposed entrance naturally rolls away from it, the location shows promise. The depth of the water table is more significant than one might initially assume. A high water table could effectively transform the root cellar into a submerged chamber. The preferred site features a water table situated at least 4 feet beneath the cellar floor. The Amish employ a practical method for assessing this. They excavate a test pit during the rainiest part of the year and observe it for 24 hours. If the pit remains dry, the location is suitable. If it fills with water, perhaps it's more suited for aquatic pursuits than root cellaring. Prevailing wind patterns also influence site selection. The ideal location receives sufficient breeze to aid ventilation, but is not situated in a high wind area. Excessive wind can actually extract the cool air from the cellar more rapidly than a hungry teenager raiding the refrigerator. The Amish often utilize natural windbreaks, such as hills or lines of trees, to shield their cellars from strong air currents. Here's a compelling statistic. The composition of the soil can influence ground temperature by as much as 5 degrees F. Sandy soils generally tend to be warmer, whereas clay-rich soils remain cooler. The Amish favor locations with a balanced mixture of clay and loam, what they sometimes refer to as Goldilocks soil, because it's neither too sandy nor too heavy in clay, and certainly not littered with large rocks. Accessibility is another vital consideration. The cellar should be conveniently close yet sufficiently distant from the main dwelling to preserve its cool internal temperature. The Amish typically aim for a distance between 50 and 100 feet from the primary residence. Any closer, and heat from the house could impact the cellar any farther, and retrieving items, especially for a midnight snack, becomes a minor trek. The orientation of the entrance holds particular importance. A south-facing entrance would essentially function like a solar collector, absorbing excessive heat. An east-facing entrance receives morning sun when the air is typically coolest. Consequently, most Amish root cellars feature entrances oriented towards the east or northeast, often shielded by a small overhang resembling a protective cap for the cellar. Speaking of maintaining cool temperatures, there exists another alternative method the Amish employ. Their ice houses function like temporal storage units, capturing the winter's cold and preserving it for use during the warmer summer months. The Amish ice houses are like time machines, capturing winter's chill and locking it away until the sweltering days of summer arrive. The process commences deep in winter, once local ponds and lakes have frozen solid. When the ice attains a thickness of about 8 to 12 inches, robust enough to support a team of horses, the ice harvest begins. Employing enormous handsaws, reminiscent of tools capable of felling large trees, Amish families meticulously cut the ice into standardized blocks, each weighing approximately 50 pounds. It resembles slicing a colossal frozen confection, albeit one capable of causing frostbite. The true ingenuity lies in the storage method for these ice blocks. Amish ice houses are essentially massive subterranean thermos containers. The walls typically consist of a double-layer construction, with a gap of a foot or more densely packed with sawdust. A noteworthy detail, sawdust possesses an R value, insulation rating, of roughly 2.2 per inch. Therefore, a foot of compacted sawdust offers superior insulation compared to many contemporary building materials. And here I thought sawdust was merely an inconvenience found in my shoes after visiting a lumberyard. The floor of an ice house begins with a layer of gravel to ensure proper drainage, as melting ice and pooled water are fundamentally incompatible. Above the gravel rests a substantial layer of straw or sawdust. Then, the ice blocks are meticulously stacked in a precise arrangement. Each layer is interspersed with sawdust, separating the blocks, akin to constructing a gigantic ice sandwich. A correctly packed ice house can store sufficient ice to serve an entire community throughout the peak summer heat. Here's where the statistics become particularly impressive. A well-constructed ice house typically loses only about 20% of its stored ice due to melting over a 6-month duration. This implies that ice harvested in January can still be utilized to keep butter cool in July. My modern freezer struggles to keep ice cream properly frozen for a month without it developing an unpleasant crystalline texture. The entrance design of an ice house is another example of clever engineering. Most feature a labyrinthine passage designed to prevent warm air from infiltrating each time the door is accessed. Some Amish communities refer to this feature as the cold trap. It functions similarly to an airlock on a spacecraft, but instead of sealing out the vacuum of space, it effectively keeps the summer heat at bay. Temperature monitoring within an ice house relies on traditional methods, sensory perception, and accumulated experience. The Amish have cultivated an exceptionally precise ability to gauge temperature simply by entering the ice house. If the cold is intense enough to cause teeth chattering within 5 seconds, the system is functioning correctly. If one can remain inside comfortably for over a minute, it indicates an issue. The ice blocks serve a dual purpose, maintaining the cold environment of the ice house and acting as portable cooling devices. Need to chill food for a community event? Retrieve a block. Planning to make ice cream during a summer gathering? Chip off the required amount. These blocks function like nature's own batteries, storing the cold of winter for use when needed. One of the most remarkable aspects involves the management of meltwater. Small channels integrated into the floor direct any water from melting ice towards a central drain. This water is not discarded. It's frequently channeled to nearby gardens or collected for various other purposes. It likely represents some of the purest water available, naturally filtered through months of freezing and thawing cycles. The communal nature of ice houses is also noteworthy. The ice harvest is a collective endeavor, bringing families together during the coldest period of the year. It resembles a barn-raising event, except participants are clad in multiple layers of warm clothing and focused on maintaining their footing on the ice. The entire activity transforms into a social occasion, often accompanied by hot beverages and food to sustain the workers. But while ice houses excel at maintaining freezing temperatures, the Amish require different strategies for storing their daily food items. This is where their profound knowledge of food storage and preservation techniques becomes evident. Root cellars might appear basic, but their internal organization rivals the precision of a well-planned logistical operation. The Amish have elevated food storage to an art form, assigning each item its ideal location based on specific requirements. It's comparable to playing a strategic game like Tetris, but instead of arranging falling blocks, I'm meticulously organizing potatoes and striving to prevent spoilage. The potential storage durations within a properly managed root cellar are astonishing. Potatoes can remain viable for 6 to 8 months, meaning those planted in spring and harvested in autumn could still be consumed as the subsequent planting season approaches. Carrots maintain good quality for 4 to 5 months, beets and turnips for 3 to 4 months, and apples can retain their crispness for up to 5 months. Effective layer management is essential. The lowest level typically accommodates root vegetables, as they prefer the coldest temperatures found there. Potatoes are allocated their own section because they emit gases that can induce sprouting in other vegetables, somewhat like that one acquaintance who invariably causes a stir. Here's a remarkable statistic. A well-organized root cellar possesses the capacity to store sufficient food to sustain a family of 6 for as long as 6 months. This equates to approximately 1/200 pounds of produce. The level of organization needed to manage such a quantity of food is considerable. Each type of produce demands distinct conditions to preserve freshness. The Amish have perfected preservation artistry through diverse methods. Wax plays a significant role. Certain vegetables, like turnips and rutabagas, are dipped in molten wax. This process seals in moisture and excludes air, extending their storage life up to 6 months. While wax-coated vegetables might resemble unusual, pale candles, the method's effectiveness is undeniable. Storage techniques differ significantly based on the food item. Cabbage heads are individually wrapped in newspaper, resembling small, green-wrapped gifts. Apples are carefully arranged in straw or sawdust, each fruit positioned meticulously to avoid bruising. Onions are braided together and suspended from the ceiling, facilitating natural air circulation around each bulb. Egg storage demonstrates particularly resourceful innovation. When coated with mineral oil and stored with the pointed end facing downwards in sand or sawdust, eggs can remain fresh for up to 6 months. They require regular rotation to ensure continued freshness, much like a very gradual game of musical chairs. The mineral oil seals the porous shell, preventing moisture loss while preserving the egg's natural protective coating. Cheese storage reveals another level of expertise. Hard cheeses are coated in wax and placed on upper shelves where temperatures are slightly warmer. Soft cheeses receive specialized handling in ceramic crocks designed to help regulate moisture. Precise temperature and humidity control are imperative. Too warm and unwanted microbial growth occurs, too cold, and the cheese's aging process ceases. The herb section within a root cellar fulfills multiple functions beyond simple food storage. Herbs are integral to the cellar's microecosystem. Bundles of dried herbs are strategically hung from the ceiling, serving not only as stored provisions, but also as natural pest repellents. Sage, thyme, and bay leaves contribute to deterring unwelcome visitors while imparting a pleasant fragrance to the environment. Meat preservation perhaps showcases the most impressive command of storage techniques. Through a meticulous combination of smoking, curing, and precise temperature management, meats can be preserved for months without relying on modern refrigeration. Hams and bacon hang from ceiling hooks in carefully selected locations where the specific temperature and humidity levels create ideal preservation conditions. The Amish have refined these practices over generations, transmitting the exact specifications for curing durations, smoke density, and storage environments. But what occurs when conditions deviate from the ideal? Even the most meticulously organized root cellar can encounter difficulties when temperatures begin to climb. Just like determined teenagers attempting to return home unnoticed after curfew, Warm air possesses an uncanny ability to infiltrate spaces where it's not wanted. When temperatures inside a root cellar start to edge upwards, the Amish remain composed. They possess a repertoire of proven, time-honored solutions that could impress even a modern HVAC specialist. The initial indication of trouble often originates from the potatoes. These subterranean indicators begin sprouting eyes more rapidly than a child fabricating excuses for incomplete homework. The premature appearance of potato eyes serves as a distinct warning that the temperature is exceeding the critical 40-degree F threshold. The Amish referred to this phenomenon as the potato alarm clock, nature's signal that intervention is necessary. One customary remedy involves the strategic deployment of cooling stones. These aren't ordinary rocks. Large, dense stones are gathered during the coldest winter periods and kept in shaded outdoor locations. When the cellar begins to warm, these naturally chilled stones are introduced to act as thermal sinks. A single 50-pound stone can absorb sufficient heat to reduce the temperature in a localized section of the cellar by several degrees for as long as 48 hours. Adjusting ventilation becomes critically important during warmer periods. The Amish are masters of night cooling, opening vents during the coldest hours of the night, typically between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., and ensuring they are securely closed before sunrise. This process effectively introduces a refreshing, cool breeze into the cellar without admitting the daytime heat. Naturally, this requires someone to be awake during these early hours, making it arguably the earliest form of an early bird special. Here's a noteworthy fact. An increase of merely 5 degrees Fahrenheit can reduce the storage life of produce by half. This underscores why the Amish employ an ingenious rotation system during warm spells. Foods are continually repositioned based on their sensitivity to temperature, resembling a complex dance where each vegetable must find its optimal location. Items more tolerant of slightly warmer conditions, such as onions and garlic, are relocated to higher shelves, while temperature-sensitive foods are grouped together in the coolest areas. Emergency insulation measures become an art form during heat waves. Additional layers of straw are packed against the walls and ceiling. Blankets, soaked in cold spring water and then thoroughly wrung out, are hung in strategic positions. Some families even establish temporary cold zones, utilizing wet burlap sacks and harnessing natural air currents. It's akin to constructing a protective fortress for the food against the encroaching heat. The Amish have also perfected the use of thermal mass to counteract temperature fluctuations. Clay pots filled with water are strategically placed throughout the cellar. These act as temperature buffers, absorbing heat during warmer periods and gradually releasing coolness. A typical root cellar might utilize 15 to 20 such natural cooling devices during challenging weather conditions. One particularly clever technique involves constructing a temporary cold air tunnel. A makeshift conduit is fashioned using boards and blankets, directing the cooler air from the cellar's lowest point to areas where it is most needed. This improvised air conditioning system proves remarkably effective, demonstrating that sometimes the most straightforward solutions yield the best results. Even the timing of access to the cellar is adjusted during warm periods. The community coordinates visits, restricting entry to essential trips only, and scheduling them during the coolest times of the day. It operates like a very strict visitation policy at a highly specialized underground vegetable infirmary. What might be surprising to many is how the Amish apply their understanding of food biology to address warming issues. Certain fruits and vegetables release ethylene gas as they ripen, which can accelerate the ripening and spoilage of adjacent produce. During warm spells, these natural gas emitters are isolated more quickly than a child exhibiting cold symptoms during flu season. Yet, even with these clever strategies, adapting to seasonal shifts sometimes necessitates a more holistic approach to food storage. A root cellar isn't merely a storage solution for winter. It must function effectively throughout the year, adapting its purpose as the seasons transition. This is where the Amish demonstrate their expertise in year-round cellar management. Winter may be the peak season for root cellars, but these underground food repositories operate diligently year-round, busier than a squirrel stockpiling nuts. The Amish adhere to a well-established schedule of cellar-related tasks that ensures their food storage system functions seamlessly, with each season presenting distinct challenges and requiring specific solutions. Spring initiates the Great Cellar Cleanup, a traditional activity that combines spring cleaning with a form of scavenger hunt. Any remaining winter potatoes concealed in corners must be located before they begin to grow into new plants. The walls are scrubbed using a mixture of vinegar and water to inhibit mold growth, while floors are swept clean and drainage systems inspected for any damage incurred during winter. The Amish utilize this period to repair any minor cracks that might have formed due to the winter's freeze-thaw cycles. This thorough cleaning process can span several days, with every section of the cellar receiving careful inspection and any necessary repairs. Did I know that a well-maintained root cellar actually aids in planning the subsequent growing season? The Amish meticulously document how long different vegetable varieties lasted over the winter. Each family keeps a cellar journal, recording which varieties performed best under specific storage conditions. These records, passed down through generations, have been instrumental in developing some of the most successful storage crop varieties available today. Some families possess journals extending back over a century, offering invaluable insights into crop storage trends and climatic shifts. Summer sees the cellar transformed into a natural cooling space for dairy items and freshly harvested produce. The temperature differential between the cellar's interior and the outside environment can reach as much as 40 degrees Celsius. Early summer vegetables receive special handling, with designated areas allocated for the short-term storage of items like peas, young carrots, and fresh leafy greens. The Amish employ a technique of stepping their produce, storing it at progressively cooler temperatures over several days to maximize its shelf life. They've observed that this gradual cooling process can extend the storage duration of many vegetables by up to 2 weeks. The Amish utilize an intelligent system of rotating shelf usage that aligns with the sun's seasonal path. During summer, shelves situated nearest the entrance are either left empty or used exclusively for items that can tolerate slightly warmer temperatures. Deeper shelves maintain temperatures as low as 38 degrees F, even amidst the summer heat, making them ideal for storing milk, butter, and fresh eggs. Each shelf level serves a distinct purpose, determined through centuries of practical experience. Autumn converts the root cellar into a bustling hub during the harvest period. The Amish are capable of processing and storing as much as 200 pounds of produce daily during the peak harvest weeks. They employ a first-in, last-out methodology for crops harvested on different dates, ensuring that each vegetable is utilized at its optimal quality. Specialized wooden crates featuring slatted sides facilitate proper air circulation while safeguarding the produce from physical damage. These crates are frequently constructed from cedar or other woods naturally resistant to rot. The organization during harvest season extends beyond merely stacking vegetables. Foods are arranged according to type, anticipated storage duration, and their ethylene gas production levels. High ethylene producers, such as apples and pears, are confined to their own dedicated areas to prevent them from accelerating the ripening process of other stored goods. The Amish use natural materials like straw and sawdust to create partitions between different types of vegetables, effectively establishing microclimates within the cellar. They have even developed specific storage methods tailored to different varieties of the same vegetable. For instance, some potato varieties store best in complete darkness, while others require minimal light exposure. Winter finds the root cellar operating at its prime efficiency. Families conduct weekly inspections of their stored provisions, adhering to a rigorous rotation schedule. Any vegetables exhibiting signs of spoilage are promptly removed and repurposed for compost. The Amish employ a clever practice of placing aromatic herbs, such as bay leaves and thyme, near storage areas. These natural pest deterrents help protect the food while also lending a pleasant aroma to the cellar environment. They also suspend bundles of dried sage, rosemary, and lavender from the ceiling to discourage insects and rodents. One fascinating aspect of year-round cellar management involves adjusting airflow according to the season. In winter, ventilation is often reduced to prevent freezing, whereas summer necessitates maximum air movement to avert moisture accumulation. They have devised a system of adjustable vents that can be precisely regulated based on external temperature and humidity. Some families even rely on natural indicators like the movement of spider webs to assess air circulation. Excessive movement indicates too much airflow, while complete stillness suggests insufficient circulation. Some Amish families have integrated traditional weather forecasting techniques into their cellar management practices. They observe natural phenomena such as plant behavior and animal activity to anticipate weather changes that could impact cellar conditions. This enables them to implement proactive adjustments rather than simply reacting to changes. Many have become so adept at interpreting these natural rhythms that they can predict temperature shifts several days in advance with remarkable accuracy. But occasionally, even the most meticulously planned root cellar benefits from a supplementary system. This brings us to the Amish spring house, another intriguing solution for food preservation. Another Amish alternative to the root cellar can be found situated above ground, the spring house. Essentially, it functions as nature's own refrigerator, powered solely by gravity and cool spring water. The crucial element for a spring house is its location. It requires a natural spring where water emerges from the ground at a consistent temperature of 50 degrees to 55 degrees F throughout the year. The Amish construct small edifices directly over these springs, thereby creating possibly the earliest form of water-cooled storage. My electric refrigerator boasts an ice maker, but these spring houses have successfully preserved butter since long before electricity became commonplace. Here's an interesting detail. A well-constructed spring house typically maintains an internal temperature within 3 to 4 degrees of the spring water's temperature year-round. This means that even on days hot enough to cook an egg on pavement, the interior of the spring house feels refreshingly cool, like a crisp autumn morning. The stone walls of these structures are generally around 18 inches thick, contributing to temperature stability more effectively than my neighbor's attempts to insulate his garage using bubble wrap. The internal layout of a spring house exemplifies ingenious simplicity. Channels carved into the floor guide the spring water through the structure, forming a network of pools and troughs. Containers of milk and butter are partially immersed in these pools, keeping dairy products fresh for extended periods. The Amish found that milk stored in this manner could remain fresh for up to a week, a feat difficult to replicate with milk left at room temperature. Managing water flow within a spring house is vital. Excessive flow can cause unwanted splashing and raise humidity levels, while insufficient flow might lead to water stagnation. The Amish developed clever systems using stone and wood channels to regulate water flow precisely. Some families can adjust their spring house's water flow using merely a few wooden planks and strategically positioned rocks. It's like operating a miniature water park designed for food preservation. The upper levels of a spring house function as dry storage zones. The cool air ascending from the water below establishes ideal conditions for storing eggs, cheese, and cured meats. It offers a dual benefit: water cooling at the base and air cooling above. The temperature difference between these levels can be as much as 10 degrees F, representing nature's version of a multi-zone cooling system. Most spring houses incorporate specialized shelving systems designed to withstand the humid environment. Cedar planks, naturally resistant to moisture and mold, are frequently used. These shelves are often constructed with gaps between the boards to promote air circulation, preventing the musty odor that often accompanies damp conditions. One of the most resourceful features is the ventilation system. Small windows located near the roofline can be opened or closed to manage humidity levels. Open them slightly if humidity is too high, close them if the air becomes too dry. It provides climate control without the associated high electricity costs. Some families have utilized the same spring house ventilation system for over a century. Try achieving that kind of durability with a modern appliance. The Amish also utilize spring houses as natural air conditioners for adjacent buildings. By leaving the spring house door ajar on exceptionally hot days, the cool air flows outward, helping to cool nearby structures. It's akin to having central air conditioning, but powered by spring water instead of electricity. One family mentioned that their spring house assists in cooling their workshop during the summer. Now that's what I call a sustainable energy solution. Perhaps the most compelling statistic regarding spring houses is this. A typical Amish spring house utilizes approximately 500 gallons of spring water daily to sustain its cooling effect. This same water subsequently flows outward to irrigate gardens or provide water for livestock, making it one of the most efficient multi-purpose systems imaginable. Meanwhile, modern refrigerators simply consume electricity and contribute to the monthly power bill. But what if I don't have a conveniently located spring on my property? That leads to another pertinent question. Is it feasible to construct my own root cellar at home? Embarking on my own root cellar project might not be as complex as preparing for a mission to Mars, although I admit locating the ideal site in the yard can sometimes seem almost as daunting. The encouraging news is that with fundamental tools, appropriate materials, and a readiness to engage in some manual labor, I can establish my own food preservation haven. The endeavor commences with selecting the suitable location. A north-facing slope offers the best conditions, but if my yard is relatively level, that's not an insurmountable obstacle. The primary goal is to identify an area that remains naturally cooler and possesses good drainage. Excavation will typically need to reach a depth of about 6 to 8 feet, which necessitates contacting utility companies beforehand to avoid inadvertently disrupting underground lines. Transforming a root cellar project into an emergency plumbing repair is best avoided. The excavation itself will create a pit roughly 8 feet by 10 feet, with the walls angled slightly inwards as depth increases, resembling an inverted pyramid. This design helps mitigate the risk of cave-ins, which would undoubtedly hinder food storage aspirations. Here's an interesting statistic. A properly constructed root cellar can potentially reduce annual food storage energy expenses by as much as 90%. Achieving this efficiency hinges on correct construction methods. I'll require concrete blocks or stones for the walls, at least 12 inches thick, pressure-treated lumber for the entrance structure and door frame, gravel for ensuring drainage, robust plastic sheeting for waterproofing, and a ventilation system comprising two 4-inch diameter pipes, one serving as an intake near the floor level and the other as an exhaust near the ceiling. The drainage system is indispensable unless I envision my root cellar serving a secondary function as an underground wading pool. A 4-inch layer of gravel covering the floor, gently sloped towards one corner, will prevent water accumulation from turning my stored vegetables into an unintended soup. The walls demand meticulous construction, including the application of waterproofing material on the exterior surfaces. This is not an area where cutting corners is advisable unless I relish the future challenge of locating and repairing leaks. An effective entrance design is crucial. Ideally, it should incorporate 2 doors, creating an airlock effect. Both doors must seal securely, yet remain easy to operate. Performing a strenuous feat of strength just to retrieve potatoes for dinner is undesirable. Inside, robust wooden shelves, preferably crafted from rot-resistant wood like cedar, should be installed with approximately 12 inches of vertical spacing and sufficient clearance for easy movement between them. Accidentally bumping into shelves and triggering a cascade of falling vegetables is less amusing in practice than it might sound. Monitoring temperature and humidity is essential for gauging the health of the root cellar environment. The target range is typically 32 to 40 degrees, with 85% to 95% humidity, achievable through careful adjustment of the ventilation system. The overall cost can vary, potentially ranging from $800 to $3,000, contingent on whether I undertake the labor myself or enlist professional assistance. This investment is often less than the price of a high-end refrigerator, and importantly, this structure won't contribute to my monthly electricity bill. Perhaps the most rewarding aspect is that, once constructed, A root cellar can potentially serve generations. It represents a tangible link to historical practices while simultaneously embodying principles relevant to a more sustainable future, affirming that sometimes the most effective solutions have been situated right beneath our feet all along.